Nicole, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, Beth. Thanks for having me on here. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. Well, welcome to Women Investor Wednesdays. What happened, why I started this is I learned, I think, 5 years ago that of all of the investors in commercial real estate, only 3% were women. And of the 3%, half were women who inherited or were personal guarantees of their husband's loans. So that means there's only 1.5% of us that are doing it, like I'm part of and you're part of. And so I created this conference called the Summit, the Women Investor Commercial Real Estate Summit. And we had it virtual year one, and then we've had it live for the last 4 years. And but we can only fit like 200 women. So there's a lot of women out there that don't know about the conference, can't come to the conference. So I decided to have this every time I meet a woman that invests, I say, you have to come on my podcast. So I I think we have 30 or 40 women now I've interviewed that are investors, because when I started interviewing women saying, why don't you invest? They gave a lot of reasons, but in the end, it was because they didn't know other women doing it. And that makes sense since there's only 3% of us doing it. So I felt that the conference and the podcast would help give platforms for women like us to get the word out, like, hello, there are women out there doing it.
And that makes perfect sense as to why you were in Wire.
Yes. Well, I joined Wire, Women in Real Estate. Nicole and I, Nicole's still a member, and I was a member, I think, for 4 or 5 years. I joined Wire because I met Brittany and Kaylani on Clubhouse during COVID. And this was before I started trying to get women to invest. This is about the time that I learned that those numbers were so low, because my first conference, which was virtual, was during COVID. So that was all happening at the same time. And yes, and when I met Kalani and Brittany, and I said, I'm on a mission to get women to invest. And they're like, you need to join my group. So I met a lot of
Nice.
great women, and Kalani and Brittany spoke at my conference. Other Wire women have spoken at my conference and on the podcast. And here's another one.
Yay. Wire's
And
taking
Nicole, I mean, Nikki Perez, Nikki
Yeah,
Perez,
uh-huh.
she
Mhm.
sponsored my
I
conference.
I saw that was a fabulous setup that she had. Shout out Nikki. Hey.
Okay. So tell the audience about your journey, because we got to talk a little bit before this, and I can't wait to get to what we were talking about before, but let's start from the beginning. So what was your first deal that you invested in?
Well, so this is multi-layered. Where anyone, blah 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 blah. Anytime somebody asks me when I started or how long I've been in real estate, I say, well, I have like a few different start points. So the first start point was when I learned that real estate investing was even possible for a regular person that didn't have like corporation or big money and all that stuff. So I joined that coaching program, hit the ground running, trying to wholesale. And I did that for a few years and did nothing. Like I got a group of people together. We did all the things. We were out doing all the stuff, like putting up bandit signs and talking to owners. So we had contracts and all that. We just never closed not one wholesale deal. And then at that same time, I had joined the RIA because they always tell newbies to join your local RIA. So I did that, and the RIA had been doing um, market tours, like to a couple of different cities we had traveled to. So I went to one city with a couple of members. We were in Detroit, and I want to say a couple. There was a big group of us, and about 20 of us decided, seeing what we saw at that time. This was like 2010, 11, somewhere around there, that we wanted to invest there. So we all pulled together $5,000 each and bought 4 properties from the tax auction. Uh, that did not end well after like a year or two. It was
What
just
happened?
I think about this all the time, and I try to, in hindsight, think about like what could have went wrong. But I think we were out of town, out of state. We didn't have anybody who was from that area. We didn't have boots on the ground, someone who knew. Detroit is one of those cities you have to know block by block. It's important to know your market like the back of your hand anyway, but some cities are much more pertinent than others when it comes to market knowledge. And Detroit was one of those. It still is. I put Detroit and Baltimore kind of that same, you need to know block by block. And so we thought our team, our boots on the ground, because we had met realtors, contractors, attorneys, all that when we were there, but they weren't really on our team. Like we needed somebody who was in the group. So I think that was probably just our biggest, we didn't have the knowledge of the market and what was going on and where we bought pretty hastily, because we didn't have enough time to do as much market research because our realtor didn't do the research in time for the auction and blah blah blah, and we just wanted to, done is better than perfect, right? So do it. But sometimes you have to pay for that.
So,
So yeah,
so everyone, how much did everyone put in?
5,000.
So everyone lost their five.
Yeah, I think by the end of it, yeah, I don't think I got,
Well, it
I
could
we
have
might
been
have got our
worse.
money back. Yeah.
It could have been worse, right?
Yeah, definitely could have been worse. I've experienced worse. But yeah, so that was basically my first investment, but that was a group investment. It was 20 of us. I was on one of the ACT team, like the management team and all that they had voted for us, a couple of people to be on that. So I was on that. So I did have some decision making abilities, but I wasn't really head honcho there. So my first real solo investment was a three-family house hack.
Tell the audience what a house hack is.
Ah, yes, sorry. A house hack is where you buy residential 2 to 4 unit multifamily property. You live in one of the units and you rent out the other ones. And the advantage of that is because you can still get owner financing, owner occupied financing, because you're the owner and you're occupying the building. You can get that type of financing, which is very low down payment, like 5% or 3.5% if you're going to go with FHA. Good thing is conventional just expanded. So now they used to not do multifamily for 5% down. You'd have to do like 15 or 20% down, or they would step it up, I believe. But now they'll do 5% down on multifamily up to 4 units for you to live in. And conventional has a little bit better terms than FHA, a lower cost loan product. But in any case, so for between that 3.5% and 5% down, you can get into multifamily and live for free or cash flow, or just greatly reduce your cost of living, and your highest cost of living is your housing expense. So that was
So
my
that's
first.
amazing. So you lived in a unit, and then were you successful in renting the other three out?
Yes. So it was a 3 units. I lived in one and rented the other two out. Um, when I first saw the property, and actually the way I found it, it wasn't listed online. Well, it was, but I didn't know. I pulled a list from List Source. And that's a national registry, so anyone can use listsource.com, and you can pull a list by zip code, city, you can have a bunch of different criteria. So I pulled a list and then I mailed to owners of 3 and 4 unit properties in the area I was living. And this was a response from one of those mailings that I sent out.
So
Um,
you learned, so this was in the city you were living. So you learned the lesson from Detroit. I'm going to invest where I live.
and also, I didn't have money for a big down payment. Like I needed to use FHA 3.5% down. I don't have 10,
Yeah.
15, 20% for, I live in New York City. So a down payment here is extremely high, right?
How much,
So
do you remember how much the three units were?
yeah, 505,000 was my purchase.
So 505. And then was there any issue with FHA because you were a woman?
No, Not that
Awesome.
I not that I saw, not that happened in my face. It might have, I had an issue with one loan because my DTI was too high. I needed to, or because
What's
it was mainly because of my taxes. I was writing too much off on my taxes, I guess. So we had to switch loan products to something else. But in any case, that's why I also, anyone listening, go with a broker. I think that gives you a wider range of potential loan options that you can look at. And a broker has relationships and they can lead you to the loan product and lender that best fits your scenario. Because if you go into one bank, you have to fit in their box, and if you don't fit in their box, you don't get the loan.
Yeah, my first deal was a 1.77 acre piece of land, and I hired a mortgage broker because I had no idea how to I had no idea how to get a loan. I knew how to lease the property. I could lease it all day long, up and down, sideways, but I had no idea how to get a loan or put it together the package that they wanted. But let me back up. I don't know what DTI is.
Sorry, debt to income ratio.
Oh, see,
So,
this is why I ask these questions, because we all say things differently, right? So I don't want anyone in the audience to go, what are they talking about? Okay. So, all right. So you buy the 505, you live in it. Did you get the rental numbers you thought you would on the other two?
yes, just like $100 less because the owner that I bought it from, he was a rehabber. I'll put that in air quotes. Because he bought the building has stayed vacant for like 10 years from when it was built. It was built in like 2008, so right when the market crashed. So it sat vacant all that time. He bought it the year before I did. He was supposedly rehabbing it. I don't know what he did. I think everything in there is pretty original to the the build, right? And he, when I saw it vacant, he said, "Hey, I'm going to find tenants for you. Don't worry. I'm going to find you the best tenants. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. The best tenants, and you're going to get this much rent, and they don't pay for this, and you blah, blah, blah." All these lists of things, right? I get to the closing table. He doesn't even come to the closing. He sends his person. And that's when I got all the documentation I was supposed to get before they moved in. He let them move in before before I was approved anything. And I wasn't gonna not close. This is my first big building. I'm not gonna not close. So I go to closing, I get the lease packets and all the stuff, and I realized he told me he was gonna rent them for 1,800 each. And he rented them for 1,700 each, and he put them on 2-year leases instead of 1-year leases. So out the gate, I got stuck with that. But and also he told me that they pay for their own water, which they don't, because I made this whole nice intro landlord letter introducing myself to the tenants, and I want to have a good rapport. And I did that, and they're looking at me like, "We don't pay for water." He didn't tell us. So it started off already with adversity. It was fun. It was very fun. I'm not discouraging anybody from not investing. There's so many more benefits on the other side of that. You just have
Absolutely.
to
So do you still live there or no?
No, I moved 4 years ago, 4 to 5 years ago, but
So
I
do
still
you
own it.
still own it?
Yes.
So it's all rented now with 3 new tenants you put
Yes.
in.
Oh, yeah, we have multiple iterations of tenants since then.
What
Yes.
is the rent that you're getting now?
I have a 2-bedroom and 2 3-bedrooms. So the 2-bedroom is 2,200. Um, the 2 3-bedrooms, I'm getting like 28, 29 for one and around 3,000 for the other.
So it sounds like, did you refi it when you moved out? Did you
I
have to
did refi. I did refi. I refied with my crystal ball into a first position HELOC. If anyone, HELOC is a home equity line of credit. Normally, a home equity line of credit is second position after your main mortgage. If you have any equity, you can take the extra equity as a HELOC, and that's normally on the back end. So it's secondary to the first mortgage. So I refinanced the whole thing into a first position mortgage because it was this strategy that, if you use it like a bank account, you pay it off faster, just put your whole paycheck in there, you could pay off your mortgage in like 10 years instead of 30. That's not why I got it anyway. I just wanted access to my money. I did not like the fact that when I pay into my principal, I couldn't get that money back unless I refied. So I thought this was my workaround, because I knew I wanted to invest more. And so I figured if I do this, I never know what kind of opportunities. So I can pay on the principal whenever I want, but I could always just have access to get it back. And that was in 2019 when I refinanced. And then a couple years ago, the Fed started raising rates.
Yes,
And
so
my
did you have a variable
Yes,
rate?
yes,
Yeah,
I have a variable rate.
that's okay.
I have a variable
We
rate.
all, I had a couple, and I've been doing it a lot longer than you. So
It works out. It works out. Everything works out. But so my mortgage, my interest only payment has basically doubled since a little bit more than doubled since 2019, or even just from last year is about doubled. Um, the good thing is that the rents from the new tenants that I have still cover the debt service and all my expenses and the amount of money, because I do take money out of it to subsidize my rent because I'm renting now, and I use that to subsidize my rent, and I'm still normally every month for all these years been able to take the same amount of money out to subsidize my rent.
So
So
it's a
it
so it's
still
a
works out.
success, and it's appreciating,
Oh yes, definitely.
and you get depreciation and deductions.
Yes,
So
yes,
do you have any
definitely.
plans on selling it, or are you going to hold on to it?
I tried to sell it in 20, was it 23 or 22? Um, I don't remember what year, but I tried to sell it. And then I got an offer, and then the people who the buyers kept playing games and kicking the can down the road and wanting this done, or oh, we need to fix this on the contract, or we need to do that, or can you take less down as a down payment, and all these just different games. And I was trying to actually use that capital to invest in like two other projects. So I was so flustered and stressed, and I was just like, oh my God, they need to hurry up because they're ruining my opportunity to invest in other things. I wanted to get out of the landlord. I wanted to take my landlord hat off and just invest in other things and be asset management and not have to deal with actually dealing with tenants on a day-to-day basis. So we ended up at the end of the day, I canceled contract on them within my rights because I poured over that contract and they had violated in so many different ways. I got their earnest money, but it was only like 20,000. It should have been closer to 100, but because they said they were buying cash, we're going to close in 2 weeks. Will you take 20 down? I say, if we're closing in 2 weeks, yes, I'll take 20 because it doesn't matter. In 2 weeks, I'll have the rest. But then we didn't close in 2 weeks. It was like months and months later. So, and they actually made me get rid of all my tenants. I was fighting for them because they were good tenants and they paid on time. But they said at the end of the day, they wanted it to be delivered vacant. And so I got it delivered vacant. I actually paid my tenants their moving fees, their realtor fees in New York City. You get a broker. Most of the time, brokers help you find new apartments, and that charges like 1 month's rent. So I was paying for that for my tenants because I was making them move. Like, you know what I mean? I felt bad because they were good tenants. So
Yeah.
I was already out of money for making them move. And each month that they didn't close, I was not getting any income. So all of that monthly income that I was going to get from the tenants, they had agreed they were supposed to add it onto the purchase price and pay that all back to me at close. Then I had to cancel contract because they were playing games and I only got the 20K. But in any case, I got new tenants using a vouchers from tenants that I got from a homeless shelter. So it was something that I wanted to do to give back and actually help a community that was really in need. So I've been working with the city. They're in a program called City FEPS, which is New York City's version of Section 8. New York City still sucks, but my tenants are good. So
Well, and think about, you just, that whole story is just a master class in and of itself,
oh,
right? You got a
definitely.
PhD right there.
Yes, I
Like
definitely did.
like no one's ever doing that again with you.
No. That no, 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 no. Anytime I get yellow letters or whatever else like, cold mail, and they're like, we close fast, we close all cash. And I'm like, all cash my ASS. You
Yeah.
can't get me with that. That doesn't I don't know
Yeah.
how anybody would ever convince me that they could close in all cash. I would always just think you're BSing or you're not going
Yeah.
to do it. So I don't know.
Okay. So then tell me about the next deal.
So the next deal after that was I also refinanced. That was also during the time of all the new regulations with COVID had happened, and so they were letting you take out money from your retirement accounts up to 100K without paying any prepayment penalty.
Mhm.
So I had, I think probably like 50 or 60 in there, between my contribution and my employer's match, the 3% match. And I've just been doing that, just 3% for my own paycheck for a few years. I wasn't even thinking about it. When I looked and saw how much I had, I was like, oh, they actually let me, I thought they were only going to let me take out the portion that I contributed to it, but they actually let me take out the employer's contribution to it too. So I took out the whole 50, 60K, and I used that. I opened up a bank on yourself life insurance policy, which we can talk about that later, but I won't go into it right now. And then when I funded it with that money, then I took a loan from myself and used that as a down payment on a 6 unit. And the 6 unit was my first commercial building.
Wow. And how much was that?
That was 400,000. No, it was 360. 360.
And did you buy that yourself?
I have a partner, a business partner. So it's just two of us and we split everything 50-50.
Awesome. And you got a loan.
Yep. From a local community bank.
So you use the money from the 401k as the down payment with the partner, and you got the loan.
Yeah.
And have you rented those 6 units?
Oh yeah, they were already rented when we bought it.
Okay. And they're good tenants and you're renewing them and you're getting
Yep.
increased rents.
Yep. So that was a big value add property. Um, it was under market rent. It what needed a lot of rehab. Those the market that I invest
Is
in
it
is
retail or office? What's
no,
the
no, no.
asset?
It's multifamily.
Oh, okay.
It
Okay.
does multifamily residential.
Okay.
Um, and the market that I invest in has very old buildings, like 100 years old. So everything needs like work. The owner that we bought it from, her husband actually dealt with the property, but he had passed away a few years earlier. So she wasn't really doing anything else with it. So when we came in and we bought it, one tenant was already out because he got arrested. So his unit was vacant and his family came and took his stuff. So we just started with that unit. We just did the renovation, increased rent. And then as other units decided to vacate, then we would renovate their units and then increase rent there. And then
How much money did you put into that first renovation?
I don't know maybe that one was 8 or 9. Between 7 and $9,000 for the renovation of that first unit. I know total with all the units, once we had done everything, I think we had like 75, 80 that we had put in, and there's still 2 units that we haven't done yet because those tenants always wanted to stay. So we just went in and did whatever updates or upgrades that they needed, quick fixes. But those 2 still aren't done. So it was 75 to 80 grand on the other units and all the like common area and kind of certificate of occupancy work that the city required for us to do. So we just told the owner that we would handle all of that just to sweeten the deal kind of thing. So and now that property is running really well. It gives us probably like 3 to 4 thousand, sometimes not even five. No, I don't think five. 3 to 4 thousand of cash flow a month now.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned that you are at work or that so do you have a full-time job besides everything you do with this?
Oh yeah. You see, if you guys, I work in a hospital. If you see like, oh, I'm pointing the wrong way. I can't get this. You see the hand sanitizer. There's a clinic room on this side. I'm still confusing the thing. And I have 2 young kids at home, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. So it's very, very busy.
But you can do, but you're able to do it. Cause that's, one of the things is I can't do it. My kids are too small, or I can't do it until I retire because I have a full-time job. I mean, there's always like can'ts and reasons why.
There is never a perfect time to get started. It's just imperative that you start. When I refinanced my 3 unit, I knew it was because I wanted to scale. I knew that this 3 unit was not supposed to be where I stopped. I was also, by time I joined, that was like in the spring that I refinanced. By time I was looking for a multifamily mentor because I want to scale into the commercial side. And by time I picked the mentor, it was probably like the fall, October, November, and I was 8 months pregnant. So tell me you don't have time. Well, that was my second child, and so I thought, "Oh, I know how babies do. They just, this is gonna be good. She's just gonna be a newborn, and I could just do all the things I need to do, and like it'll be easy because I'll just be dealing with the toddler. I don't have to really deal with her as much because you just forget, after you have a kid.
I, I'm here as a testament. I have been on calls with you with a baby and a toddler running. I've seen.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I do want to talk about, and so we're getting great comments. So love it, love this, and hearing different ideas for investing. Did you have an easier time getting a loan with the tenants in place? Linda's asking. On that last deal, did you have an easier time getting the loan on the 6 unit because you already had tenants?
Um, I don't know if it's easier. And I think that's a hard question because lenders who lend on commercial property, they'll look at what the potential rent or what the rent comps are in the area. So they'll know what it can rent for, and they'll know that market if it's going to rent up easy and that kind of thing. So that's really where they'll help you with evaluating that market. Even when I bought my three family, it was vacant when I first bought it, but when I first looked at it, but it wasn't vacant when I bought it. So I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
I don't think it's easier. I
I
don't think
want to talk about your syndications because I thought that was fascinating what we said before we started. And I do want you to go back and talk about the bank on your own life insurance because I also know about that concept. I've never used it, but I know people that have used it, and we've never talked about that on the podcast.
Hmm.
So let's, and then the last thing, because we usually start closing out, but you do have time to stay another 10 minutes?
Oh yeah, I have plenty of time.
Okay. Because I also want to talk about, you've mentioned coaching, you've mentioned mentors, you've mentioned masterminds. And a lot of times this audience doesn't understand or know about all of that either and how important. I've been in multiple masterminds. I've had coaches. I've hired coaches for all kinds of different things. So which of those three do you want to start with those will be the last three things I'll bug you about.
Okay, so let me just say I'll go with the life insurance, the life on your bank on yourself policy. So the first thing, I read a book. I was when I refinanced the 3 unit, I was looking up, I literally Googled what do the wealthy people invest in? That's what I put into Google. And I was like just going from there down the rabbit hole. And I came across this book. Um, it was called Heads I Win, Tails You Lose. I think it's Patrick Donahue. And I was like, "Wait a minute." I had to think about it. Tails, I win, heads, you lose. That means I win both times. Okay, wait, what is this? And so I picked up the book, and it was all about banking on yourself, like a family bank on yourself type. Everybody calls it something different, but it's the same concept. The concept is everyone thinks life insurance is just for death benefits when you pass for your heirs. But there are living benefits for life insurance policies, and you can use it in a way to help kind of, I guess, charge up or put fuel on the fire for your like investing and your capital. And basically, the reason they call it bank on yourself is because you can put the money in, you can take a loan from yourself, and you can pay yourself back as much interest as you want. Like you could pay over the amount of interest that the life insurance company will charge, and that extra interest will just be going back to you into your dividends and into your the growth of your policy. um the reason I really liked that, outside of, because some people say, oh, well, you can get a lower rate if you just leverage the policy amount, like the cash value. But I don't want to go to a bank and who's going to leverage my policy, because then when they take a loan from them, I have to pay back on their payment schedule. When you take a loan from yourself from the life insurance policy, you pay it back whenever you want.
So
Or you go.
let's walk this through. You call, who do you call to buy the policy, and what do you say to that person?
So you need to look for someone who is specifically trained on the bank on yourself type of method of forming the policy, because traditional, at least there's whole life and there's universal life, there's other types, but traditionally whole life is seen as like it takes a long time for your cash value to build up. And that's why there's such a disagreement on if whole life versus term is better, blah, blah, blah. But with this type of policy, your cash value is like that. But it's because they decrease the death benefit a little bit and increase the contributions to the cash part of the
Do
policy.
you have to put, how much do you open what does it cost to buy the policy?
Just depends on how much you want, how much
So
death benefit or how much of a policy that you want. I started mine. Sometimes there is a minimum where it makes sense. I think if your policy is like 300 a month to 500 a month, it makes sense there. So I started with 500 a month, and I didn't originally start with putting any kind of extra money in to charge the policy. And I say charge, I mean just like to extra fund it with extra capital, until that whole policy came out where you could take out from your life insurance, not life insurance, your
401k.
retirement. Yeah, 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 from your retirement. So that's when I took that extra money and supercharged the policy. But you can do whatever amount feels right for you. It makes sense just to do whatever works in your budget.
Okay, great. All right. And are you going to do that again? Can you do it multiple times or no?
Yes, you can have multiple policies, and I do plan to do it again, and I plan to do it for my daughters as well. Um, but I haven't done it yet because I'm waiting for some more cash flow infusions.
I hear you. Okay,
Uh,
now, so we talked earlier, and she goes, and Nicole said, I said, how many properties do you have? She goes, well, I have 5, but I only count 3. I go, well, why do you only count 3? And she goes, well, because I syndicated 2, and I own a little piece. And I said, oh, you mean blades of grass? And she goes, what does that mean? I go, we all own properties where we own blades of grass on the properties.
literally like
My
one
kids used
blade in the lawn.
my kids used to go to school, one of them, and my oldest and my youngest. And one day my oldest came home and he goes, Mom, Mario's telling everyone that you own all the shopping centers across the street from the school. And I had to sit them down at dinner that night and go, we own blades of grass. There's a lender, I have partners, we're not got rocks here. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So, okay. So talk about, and she goes, and I'm never doing that again. I wasn't in charge. So I like sharing the successes and then the mistakes that we're never going to do again. So let's talk about that. Cause I'm an LP in a lot of deals. Like I've done syndications, but when I do the syndications, I'm usually the GP. And I put more money in than if I'm an LP in someone else's deal. So talk about what happened here.
Okay. So I'm GP of two different deals, a 32 unit and a 110 unit. And so I was helping to raise capital for those and being involved. However, the lead GPs wanted me to help out. It's
How
turning out
many lead GPs were there?
so there's 2 lead GPs on each deal.
Okay.
There are a lot of other GPs in the deals, so there is more than probably there needs to be on each deal. I think both of these deals were in trouble raising capital, and so they
So
ended up
they said, come be a GP and bring in some capital.
exactly, exactly. So these were my first capital raise opportunities, and I don't have a network full of money. And so it really was for me to grow and push myself because it was very uncomfortable for me to ask people for money. Even though you're not asking for money, you're offering an opportunity. It's a whole mindset shift, right? But it was still just awkward because money is something that people don't really openly freely talk about, and finding out who wants to invest and
Especially women.
especially women, right? And so all the dust settled and we closed, they actually both happened to close the same day, which is just um, serendipitous. But my percent ownership of both deals is so small. It's like 1 or 2%, or if that, from each deal. And you get an acquisition fee. Like I got $1,000 from one, maybe 800 or 900 from another. I can't retire on that. That's not my annual salary. I don't get any cash flow from it because I'm not on the asset management team. Like when you're in a syndication, there's different buckets of responsibilities. If you're on the asset management team, you get some of the asset management percentage, which is fee, which is 1 to 3% normally, and you split that between the DPs that are on the asset management team. I'm not getting that. So the main thing that I would get is on the back end, potentially some payout from the increasing the value of the building over the hold period. One of those buildings I'll say is not in great shape right now, so I don't think there will be any profit on the tail end of that. But in any case, this is a good segue into the coaching part, 'cause I think coaching is so it's just vital. Like I've been in so many, I think I'm a coach mentee kind of like addict because I can't stop joining groups. It's like I'm always looking for the and I'm doing so many different things too. So I'm like, I need a coach for that thing. I need a coach for that thing. I need a coach for that thing. Like so I just probably joined 2 or 3 groups this year. And I told myself last year I was not joining any more groups this year. I told myself and I just did. Okay. Anyway, so that experience with my smaller multis, because after that 6 unit, we bought a 5 unit. We refinanced the 6 unit and bought a 5 unit in the same market. And so I have my experience managing and asset managing and being involved with the 5 and 6 unit and seeing the cash flow build up and being able to really recognize that and it's tangible. And I'm getting like good like distributions monthly from our property management company. Um, versus this syndication or these syndications where I'm not a lead GP. I'm not like I don't have say. I don't get much capital or equity stake in those. So what I want to say is if I didn't have those other smaller multifamilies and I was relying on cash flow for my real estate, I'd be screwed waiting for the syndicated deals to give me cash flow. Syndication is not a cash flow model. And I think a lot of people are mistaken in thinking like it's a big, sexy, oh, we just closed this for all of our investors. We did this, gave these distributions, all this stuff. But like, yeah, you closed it for your investors. Like you're not, how much are you actually getting? It depends on how much you're bringing to the table, right? And
Right.
so I am a strong, strong proponent for anyone looking to get started in multifamily to start with smaller multifamily that you can either do yourself and you can afford, you have enough capital to do yourself, or with maybe one, maybe two other joint venture partners, which joint venture means everybody has a like say and they bring capital all to the deal. So I think that's a much better foot in the door strategy than jumping into trying to do syndication and taking this little tiny sliver because they always say, oh, a little piece of a watermelon is bigger than the whole apple. But no, I
Well,
don't think
I would
so.
say I agree with some of that. I will say that I am an LP in some multifamily deals, but there is an asset management fee. There's very, very, very few fees.
Mm,
There's no acquisition fee. There's no disposition fee.
really?
Yes.
Well, that's a
It's
good deal to be in as an LP.
right. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. So when you are looking to be an LP in a syndication, the fees is the very, very important to find out. So I have a woman reached out to me and said, hey, we're taking to market some multifamily deals if you want to take a look. And I said, sure. And they were having a webinar and I went on the webinar and there were like 10 faces. And I'm like, who are all of these people? And she goes, those are the GPs. I'm like, why are there 10 GPs? And it was what you were saying is like, well, a lot of them are capital raise people. And I'm like, what fees are you charging? And then they went through the whole webinar and they never brought up the fees. And then they kept following up with me. Are you interested? I said, I want to know what the fee chart is. What are you, because even me, like I'll syndicate shopping centers. I don't take an acquisition fee. I don't take a disposition fee. I don't take an asset manager fee. I don't take an accounting fee. And I take none of those. I take property management and leasing. End of story. Now,
Mm,
when we go sell the deal, I will hire a retail expert investment sale broker and we will pay that person a fee, but I'm not going to take any of that. So I think it's super important that there are syndications that and again, I give distributions and that other multifamily syndication that I'm in, I get checks every month. So you just have to drill down and ask all of these right questions, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. When you're a limited partner, you're passive and you don't have any say, you're just giving your capital, investing your capital, but you want to make sure that that structure and what the general partners is in alignment
Right.
for making the deal be the best deal possible, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, on the deal
So
side.
tell us about your coaching before we go to the last question and
Okay.
you go back to work and everyone else goes back to their evenings with their
Well, my mentorship is about buying small multifamily. So I handhold people through like wannabe investors or people who want to get started with their first small multifamily. Whether it's I do focus on the commercial side, like a 5 to 10 unit. I call it microfamily. So 5 to 10 unit is the microfamily range, but I've extended that. I think even 2 to 4 units. If you actually, I don't like 2 units. 2 units are good. That's a debate we can do. That's another day. But 3 to 4, 3 to 10 units, I'll say that's my micro family range. And so I have one-on-one coaching that I do to help people through. And there's also a course portal. There's a lot of things that they get, but because it's so individualized, you can go through the course portal and then we can work on that step by step together, or you can come in and just talk about whatever is the next thing, most pressing thing on your mind. So I just help people through that and through the mindset blocks about and the false assumptions that people will have sometimes about how certain things work when you get behind the curtain in the multifamily world.
Absolutely. Well, and how is the best way for people to find you to talk about this?
Oh, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Nicole Pendergrass, my name on all of them. And if you want to send me an email, Nicole, uh, yeah, Nicole at Noir Vest Holdings. That's so hard. Nicole at NOIRVEST Holdings.com. That's my email.
Got it. I put it in the notes. Okay, so last question. This has been so awesome. What a great, lots of advice.
Thank you.
Can I ask a personal question?
Yeah.
You can say no. How old are you?
41.
Okay, so it's so important because again, women, there's all kinds of reasons that they don't invest. So we've got a full-time worker, someone has a full-time job, 2 little baby kids, 41, you can do it. And you've done so many different things. Did the house hack. Then you did the tax thing in Detroit. You did the syndication. You've done the 5 and the 6 units. You've done the life insurance thing. I love it.
Yeah.
You guys,
And
I'm 63. Think of where you're going to be when you're 63. You're going to be ruling the world in New York City.
I also have a podcast too, fellow podcaster. So I
There you
do that as
go.
well.
All right. So what's the best or number one piece of advice for someone that has not tipped their toe in, but is dying to do so and has a little money saved up?
Okay. So I want to say talk to potential mentors or coaches, find a community, find someone, even if it's a free Facebook group or something. Start getting yourself around people who also want to invest or also are investing so you can know that what you want to do is possible. You need to see examples around you and surround yourself with examples and not surround yourself just with like the people who know you who say you're crazy or you're taking a risk.
Yes, that's phenomenal advice, because when you talk to your peers who are not doing it, they definitely tell you you're crazy, right?
Mhm.
So they can look into the Wire group if it's women, right? Women
Mhm.
Wire, women in real estate.
Wire
Check
has
that
some
out.
men in it too, a
What? Yeah.
couple, a sprinkle.
Yeah, we have some great men in there. And then I've never been to a RIA group. Is it good?
Yeah, and I guess I've only been to the one in New York City, like the official from the National Association of Realtors, like that one. There's a lot of groups that call themselves RIA that are not associated with the national RIA. So I don't know if it really matters as long as you're in a group that's talking about real estate. But they are really good and they are mainly geared towards people who are newer in investing.
Right. Yeah, we had a woman that spoke a few months ago, and she could not find a group, so she started her own group. and it's like every Tuesday night or something in South Florida. And it's on my calendar every week, and I've just never been able to go up there to do it. But I'm going to go to her group. But she started a group, and she started inviting people. And she said in the beginning there were like 3 or 4 people, but now she's got like 30 regulars. And it's really helpful to be around people, even if they're just starting too, because our friends and family tend to go, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. Yeah,
Right?
they do. Yep. So you need to be surrounded with people who are like-minded, um, and use that as your momentum to know that you can do this and to see other people and examples of people who are doing what you want to do. So you know that it is possible. Yeah, everyone comes from their own background, has their own resources, has their own starting points. So it's really important to try to look at people ahead of you with inspiration and not let that deter you. So read
On
the
that
book, The
note,
Gap in the Gain. That's
yeah,
a great book with that.
great book. Great book. Great book. Nicole, it's been such a pleasure. I'm so glad we got to see each other again. And I'm so
Yeah.
happy you were on the podcast. What a wealth of information. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Thank
Bye.
you. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.